Right now I'm headed to a place that I haven't been, or actually I've been avoiding for about 4 years now. There's so much work, so much iconic work that's been created in this valley. It's really hard to make original photographs here. And when I say original photographs, I don't mean photographs that are different for the sake of being different. What I mean is photographs that are made from a personal experience that you're having of a place or a location, rather than photographs that are made or informed by the experience that others have had or the experience that you've been shown others having. That's more the photos that I'm interested in making. And there's been so much work, so much iconic work created in this valley, starting with Ansel Adams. Some of his most iconic photographs have been made in Yosemite Valley. John Sexton has made some incredible work, a lot of incredible work in this valley. Neill has made incredible work in this valley, Galen Rowell, and even some like modern adventure photographers are now creating iconic work. Jimmy Chin, Chris Burkard, along with all of the other people that are creating images here for the fun of making photographs or to build on their own portfolio. It's really hard to escape from under the shadow, from under the experience that's already baked in to your expectations of this place. There's about 3 to 4 inches of snow right now in Yosemite Valley, which is pretty rare. It's staying cool, so the snow's not melting. And there's another snowstorm that's coming in the next 2 days. So I'm really excited to experience it with this winter weather. It's such an iconic place, such a classically beautiful place, but it's really hard for me to avoid this opportunity and not try to go there in hopes that being away from it for 4 years, making a lot of mistakes and working on my own visual acuity outside of the valley. If I could walk away with one image that was even partially mine and somewhat of a unique experience in these next few days, that was a unique experience to me in this valley, that would be fine. That would be amazing. But if not, I really think in contemplating pulling the trigger on this trip, landscape photography is more about failure and dealing with the failure and learning from the failure. So I think going into this knowing that there's a strong chance of failure here, and that doesn't mean failure in that the weather was bad or the light wasn't how it should be. Failure in a much more personal way that I wasn't able to see. I wasn't able to have my own experience here. That I was relying on kind of the visual language that's been built up by other photographers over the last 90 years. It's more of on that level of a personal failure that I'm worried about. But that's something that is at every location, even ones that no one's ever been. That failure is always there and always very real, and is always something that I'm experiencing. And I think anyone that's really trying to create some work that's unique to themselves, that's really comes from their own personal voice, I think that's the failure that we're dealing with a lot of times. But I'm excited to see what the next few days brings.
My trip to Yosemite did not turn out how I'd hoped. I could blame a lot of things. The weather didn't last as long as it should have. It was supposed to snow for like 2.5, maybe 3 days. It ended up snowing for only a single morning. Unbeknownst to me, there was a firefall event happening, which drew in tons of people to the valley. So the entire middle of the valley was cut off from stopping. So it made it really hard to kind of have access to some of the other areas without walking in a long way along the road, and then just on top of people being everywhere because of that. Really, the trouble for me in this trip, other than trying to escape that iconic imagery that's just baked into your head and kind of already manipulates your experience of that place, was how overloved and sick the valley felt. Every little area, you could tell, had been touched by a human. Logs that were out in the middle of meadows had been walked around, sat on, walked across in every possible way. You could just tell that everything had been overloved, and it just felt very sick. So trying to escape from both of those things and be in a present mindset, it was really hard for me. So I wanted to complete and upload this video because it goes in with the failure that I had mentioned previously while I was driving up there, and also my struggle of finding a way that I can create videos that don't get in the way of my process out in the field. I keep having in mind the format that is out there and is pretty prevalent right now, where the viewer is brought along on the journey and, you know, packing the car or showing up to the location and beautiful shots of the location and walking on the trail and setting up the camera and taking the photograph and showing the photograph. That's a really interesting experience to see people do that and see people work in that way. And there's definitely a lot of photographers out there that I admire, that I enjoy seeing them show their process in that way. But for me, switching back and forth between being present and creating photographs and removing myself from that into setting up a frame and, you know, walking into it or showing the area and thinking about how is the viewer going to see this, how is the viewer going to experience, how can I show them what I'm experiencing through this frame. I am no longer able to then in that experience the place for myself because I'm thinking of how a viewer is going to experience that. But at the same time, I'm really interested in working at finding a way that I can add this layer of video to add a context to what I'm working on and my process. And I think this is a great example of that a lot of it's failure. There's a lot of time of waiting around and nothing happening, rushing around and nothing happening. There's really just these very small moments where I'm able to show that experience, that perception of that experience, and translate that into a photograph. And then the moment goes, me pulling out another camera at that moment and trying to backtrack and reshoot to craft a story around that image. It just seems super inauthentic, and inauthentic is such kind of a lame word to use, but most importantly, it takes me out of that experience and puts me into the mind of a viewer. I just cannot switch between those two modes of thinking without it affecting what's the most important to me, and that's making photographs. So I look forward to trying to do that, trying to figure out that format, trying to figure out something that works where I can show another side of my work, of the process of my work, but also remain true to my work and true to what I'm doing. I appreciate you guys following my work, your continued interest in my work. It means a lot. Thank you.